Today we're working on the drawer fronts, so I'm going to overhang here for a 1/2 inch, and this is a 1/2 inch already, so it'll be even on each side. So I'll go from here across in a 1/2 inch to there, which is 16 3/4 inches, and then each drawer is different. This one I'm going 1 inch down to here, I mean 1/2 inch down, and then 1/4 inch here to put a little bit of a gap so that the drawers don't bang together at all. So I'll leave a little bit of a gap, and then I'll go from 1/4 inch from here up to another 1/4 inch here. I believe that's 9 inches, and then from 1/4 inch here to up here, and I think it comes out to like 6 1/4 inches, something like that. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm cutting this first one. I got the width cut now, and we're doing the height, and then we'll place it and see what it looks like. Okay, this seems to look okay. Maybe about like that, and that's right to the end down here. So I'll get the other one. This is 9 inches now. I'm going to route the edges going around to round them off. I don't know if I'll get that done tonight or not. I'll be happy if I get each board cut, and then I should be able to get them routed today. I have to figure out which blade I want to use and get the table set up, so that might take a little bit. If I get it set up and get a test run done on a test board, then I'll be ready to do it tomorrow if I don't have time to do it tonight. Last night I got all of the drawers done. This middle one gave me a little bit of a problem. The screw was long enough to go in. This isn't the screw I used, but it went in to about here. But in this middle drawer, when I screwed it in, it never actually, it caught into this board, but then it just spun. It almost like it was way too short and only went in by a couple of threads, which didn't make sense. Then I put a longer one, because that was a 1 inch screw, and I put 1 1/4 inch. That's the next size that I had, and it went through and came out the point just very little, like that much stuck out here, but you can't really see it. So I backed it out and I put some washers around it, washers on it. I had to do it for both sides. So I don't know if the board was warped. If you look at it from the side, it doesn't look like it's warped. And it's not, I mean, there was a slight bow in it, but the bottom one had the same thing. So I'm probably going to have to put a couple of screws in here, like 2 more in each drawer, just to be sure. So when we're pulling on the door, I'm not sure how the door handles work that I have. I have some to use, but if they go straight through, then that should be fine. But I don't know if they're going to be long enough to do that, so I'm not going to count on anything yet. So tentatively 2 more screws in each drawer, just to be sure. And then the top one didn't give me a problem at all. So they're pretty centered and all that. I'm pleased with it. Of course there's no handles on them. I do have to put the stoppers on the side here, because as I said earlier, you can see how it's going a little crooked here. So it can go like that. So if I put a stopper there, that's going to force it to go straight and lock in the back. And then there's a little bit of a gap from the back of the drawer to the back of the cabinet. So putting them all in, see that way they're crooked. So putting them all in, and that's what they look like. And then here's the edge with the router. That was surprisingly easy. I haven't done the details like this before. I only did rounding and a little bit of trial and error on a scrap piece of wood, but came out nice. No issues, no mistakes. So the only thing left to do up here is to put the cutting board in. I need to cut the cutting board, so I have to see. It has a groove around, like a gravy groove or a juice groove around the sides, and I think that the width where I have to cut is going to go right through that. The other side I don't think has one, so either way I don't think we would really need it for that. And then I have to work on the top here, so I haven't determined how big I want to put it. I'm going to start from the edge over here, as I don't want to go too into the seat. And then I'm going to have a little bit of a hang over the top, over the edge here, like I think maybe 1 inch. I'm not sure if it is standard, but 1 inch to 1.5 inches maybe. And I'll probably put some sort of a trim board on there to kind of finish that off. and then I want to extend it out over to here a little bit to about here. So I have to get our refrigerator cooler and see how high the lid goes when it opens. I don't want it to, I don't think it'll hit that, but I don't want that to be in the way. But if I extend that a little bit and the sink is right here, that'll give us a nice little sink area to put stuff when we're washing dishes or whatever, or to put the dish soap and that kind of thing. And then it'll keep this side of the counter open. I was trying to measure up where to put the sink within the counter, and then I decided to put the sink in the hole just to see where it sits and where the mounting screws sit, and they're like right up against the front and back supports here, so I don't have really much of a choice but to put the sink right here. So if I were to have cut the hole and then it was going to be too far this way or too far forward, then I'd be really cutting into here. But how close the screws are right now, I have the front ones touching up against the board because there's only 2 screws in the front, and then there's 3 back here. So I'm not going to have enough space to put the wing nuts on here onto the counter, and I'm going to end up having to drill this out here to accommodate it. So I'll probably, I don't know, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I already put the counter on top of this and traced the sink to the bottom of the counter, and I'm starting to cut that out. But I'm going to probably mount the sink to the counter and then see where I need to drill out or cut out in order to let it be able to sit flush onto the top here. So as you can see here, this is right up against here. So if I have to drill this out a little bit here, that's not going to be a big deal. And I don't think we're going to have stuff on here that's that heavy. Plus the counter is going to be spanning this, so weight won't be directly on this spot. It'll be distributed through the counter. So I'm going to finish cutting that now. So I got this cut here and here. I'm going to cut these sides, and then I'm going to finish up the round parts here with the jigsaw. Then maybe I can use this for a cover for the sink. So if we wanted to use the sink area for a counter, extra counter space. So I didn't want to drill too many holes in this and wreck the shape of it. Whew. Okay, let's see how this looks. No room for error, so it either works or it doesn't work. I have the counter placed where it will be. So here's what I was saying, it's overlapping this support and just barely overlapping this support, but I'm still going to have to cut a little bit in here to accommodate for the wing nut on here, and more on this part. So it fits in there. I'll make it centered up here. Okay, it looks like it's going to work. So I'll get the wing nuts on and see how that fits, and then when I'm going to permanently mount it, I'll put the plumber's putty all around to seal it up. But before I put the putty in there, let me accommodate the holes and cut whatever I need to cut or drill out here. And I can also put the faucet on before I mount this. I got the sink screwed on with the wing nuts and the brackets. I haven't checked to see if it's straight or not, but it's going to be in that basic spot. I was eyeing it up with the bent edge of the sink, so it should be pretty close. All right, so I'm definitely going to have to get the orbital cutter and just plunge cut a groove out here for the bracket. The wing nuts, I'm not going to be able to unscrew them, but if I put this together just with some pocket screws, if I'm ever need to take the sink out for some reason to reseal it or something, I can just take the whole counter off. So I'm just gonna have to do a little bit of cutting here. I don't think I'm gonna drill straight through or anything, just so this can sit down in here. I'll make sure that these are tight, and I think that'll be fine. This wing nut is turned this way, so I'll cut a little bit of a notch out there, but that's not even hitting. That one is, and that one is, but I'm not going to tighten them extra tight to turn them straight because I don't want to snap them, and they're just they're not solid metal wing nuts. They're kind of a cut metal, so I'll just do the cutting. It looks pretty straight. I have a little bit of a leeway, so if I measure from the edge to here when I'm tightening them before I put the counter down, and then just measure from the edge to the edge here, it's very close here. It's a little bit, I mean, it's off by very, very little, but if I had to take it out and put it back in again to put the putty in, and I also want to sand the counter first, so I'll just measure that from here. Might put a couple small marks here just to show where it was. The top areas here for the bracket and the wing nut, 3/4 inch in, and then I drew this. 1 down, 4 to go. I'm not going to film that back when it's done. All right, let's give it a shot and see what happens. Oh, it's sitting flat. Oh yeah. It looks like there might even be space for me to turn them if I need to. Cool. All right. I was going to go originally with this 2x4. I cleaned up the sides and sharpened the edges up, and I was going to have the 2x4 back here as a backsplash, but that was going to push the counter that way, and then the sink would be this much further out, and then this would be just barely back to here. I think it would be cutting too close. I decided to go with 1/2 inch, so I had some of the plywood I was using, and I put a piece here to measure it up. And I think if I cut the 2x4 to 1/4 inch, I think it'll be too flimsy. So I'm thinking about just cutting a groove. Just put the blade up a little bit here, cut a 1/4 inch groove, and then have this sit onto here and hang down a little bit, and that will give me some possibly some room to screw it onto there to tighten it up, but not exactly sure, but that's my idea right now. So I think I'll start cutting this and see how that works. It's thick enough, so if I screw that up, I can just go with the 1/4 inch or the 1/2 inch and see how it works. I got this board cut, and that's going to fit right on here. I took the sink out, but the cover is going to be like this, and then this will fit like that, overlap. So I think I'm going to look to secure this board to the counter. Once I get it all sanded, I have to route this board. I want to round the edges here. I cut a 45 here because the way we get off the bed is right here, so I didn't want that to be pointing out and getting caught when we're coming out of bed. And then so that's all cut and good. I have to glue this board, has a crack in it, so I have to glue this. And now I'm going to try to create the trim for the edge here. I figure I'll have it hang down about 1.5 inches. And then that will give a little bit of a space to the cutting board. So it'll clean the edge up and then hang down a little bit. So I have a 2x4 here to use. It's got a little work in it. I'm going to try to straighten that out, cut some of it off. I don't need it to be necessarily that thick. The thicker, I guess the thicker sort of the better, because it'll extend the counter a little bit. It's several days later. I didn't film it, but I ripped down a 2x4 and put a 1-inch cap on each of the sides here, and I routed the edges, rounded, mitered here and here. I had cut this at a 45. Our bed is here, so I didn't want to have a pointy edge sticking out, so it's going to be nice and smooth here. And then that goes all the way to the back. And then I decided to put the board, instead of sitting it down onto here, I think I was planning on doing it this way. Where I have the board hanging down. And remember, I had a 1/2 inch that I was working with, but I think it will look better and work better where it meets together here if I have it on top. So I'm going to put it on top, and it will work that way. I put the sink in just to make sure the spacing is okay, so that's all working. And then it looks nicer down here where this area is. I was going to cut this off and have that flush right here, right across, but this comes together here, and I think it looks pretty good. So that's what I'm going to do. I had this board longer because I didn't know exactly what I was going to need. So I just trimmed this off. I'm going to just leave a little bit of an overhang here. And I did these with the router, but my sander I was using burned up. Well, it didn't really burn up. The platter with the sander on it broke all apart where it was connected to the sander, and then it's not worth anything now. So I picked up one on sale at Harbor Freight, and it's working fine. This cover here for the dust vibrates off, so I had to duct tape it on there. It seems to snap in there kind of tight, but just the vibrations, just within a few minutes, it's popped off and it's falling off, and then the dust is shooting out at you. So I taped that on there. As long as it sands, I really don't care for how much dust really gets picked up in here. It's not like it's that vital, but I certainly don't want the dust shooting here and shooting up into my face. So, and this actually came off too. I don't know if I had it snapped on enough or not, but I snapped it and it seemed pretty tight, and I didn't use it too much afterwards, so I'm gonna use it right now. I'm gonna sand these edges here rounded instead of running it through the router, because I have to sand this part anyway since I just cut it. But this is the Bauer. This is regularly, I think, $40 or 40 something dollars, and they had a Black Friday sale for whatever reason this past weekend, and it ended yesterday. So I got this for 20 bucks, And I also picked up 2 packs of sandpaper. I think these were $6 for 5-inch 15 discs. They had 5 packs for like $5 or $6. This is a 15 pack, so they were on the Black Friday sale too. So I picked up 2 packs of these, and it is a variable speed. I don't know how often I would use that, but you have that option, I guess, if you've got just some very light sanding that you want to do, or maybe if you're working with some softer wood. I don't know. I'm not a woodworker, so I don't know if there's a rule of thumb. But so far it's been working great. This spins as it's not motorized. It just spins with the vibrations of the orbital, and it seems to, there's no swirls. It's a nice smooth finish. So I'm going to do the end of this board here now, and show you how well it works. Okay, now I was using the 150 grit. I have an 80 grit that it came with, and I also have a pack of 80 grit that I got on sale. So that would have tore this up a little bit quicker, and then I could have did it with the 150 to smooth it out. But either way, I think it made quick work of it, and for that much I needed to do, it was easier than putting it through the router. With the router and this short of a piece, it gets a little bit hairy, and I had it chew parts of some boards up when I was, so it's different than doing a full length, just sticking a little bit of a piece in here. So that's it. Well, this piece is done, and like I said, that's going to go on here. I don't know if it'll stay. It's not going to stay well, but this is what it'll look like. And the seam will be nice here. It's touching nice. There's no gap. And then I'm going to put tentatively I'm using some polyurethane to seal this up, and then I have that little bit of an overhang there. Bring this back down. So I have a little bit of an I didn't put an edge on here because the front seat is right here, so I didn't want it to rub up against there. I want to be able to lean the seat back a little bit if I have to. So now I'll just I won't get to it tonight, it's getting dark. I just want to connect this board. I think I want to connect this to the counterpiece here. I'll run a bead of glue down and then clamp it, and then unbrad nail it. That's all I did for these pieces. I got the Gorilla wood glue from Harbor Freight because I was there, and I don't know if it was a good deal or not, but put the wood glue on here, pushed it up against there. I was able to clamp it here to here because there's a straight piece here, but this piece I wasn't able to. And then I just brad nailed. Once it was clamped, I put brad nails in, then I took the clamp off and brad nailed in. The glue seems to stick pretty quickly. It's kind of like super glue in a way. And then I had 3 clamps on this. I had one on the side here, one in the middle, and one down the end here. And then I did it in between them with brad nails. And you can't really see them here. There's a little bit. There's one there, one there, one there. This isn't a fine piece of furniture, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not even going to put wood putty in there. I'll just seal it up. They're not going to rust or anything. So that's this. I will get this put together, and I'll take the sink out again after I get the board on there, make sure everything's good, and start coating it with polyurethane. I don't know how many coats I'm going to put on. It is actually actual polyurethane and not it's a oil based, it's not a water based. And I think I was looking at a water based one that you need a lot of coats, and it's not as durable. It doesn't smell, but it's not as durable. So this is going to smell and all that, but right now we have some time to let it dry and air out. Once I get the counter done, I mainly want to get the counter done first, as far as coating, and and then I can get the sink installed, and then that'll be done. whether I have this connected to the cabinet or not. And then I'll work on, I got to put the handles on the drawers and do some work on the bottom there. I don't like how the bottom is. I did cut that a little too short because I was thinking wrong, and I put some pieces in there, but I think I'm going to have it sit on this piece that I have as the bottom framing. And then this way, if we want to take this out of the van, we could set it in our campsite and have our sink outside. But also, it was getting rubbed and one of the pieces broke off down there, so I got to fiddle around with that. But if I get the whole top done and get the faucet installed and everything, that'll be great. I didn't film it, but I clamped this across with my long clamps on each end and one in the middle. And then the board had a little bit of a bend in it, so that brought it close, and so there was no gap. And I put glue on both sides of the wedge here, so here and here, and then when I pressed that on there, then that stuck on there pretty well. And then once I had that all in place, I ran some brad nails through the back here all along, and that kept it in place this way. Then I went down, and while the clamps were still on, I had some C-clamps, and I would clamp each area along here so that there wouldn't be much of a gap here. And it did squeeze it together in a couple of places. So once I did that, then I put some brad nails in from the bottom up all along. So it came out, there's a slight gap, but I'm going to put polyurethane over this whole thing, so that'll seal that all up. I was contemplating on what to do, if I should just polyurethane it or put some stain on it. And this is some dark stain I have, here's some light stain, and then this is just the polyurethane from here over, and this is the bare wood. So, and that's my wife, and she didn't like this at first, then she thought it looked good, but then once I brought the tabletop out, the countertop out, and we placed it on there, she didn't really care for that, for the dark for the top. So we're going to go with the lighter color to give it a little bit of color, and then do the backsplash, the darker color, and then the drawer fronts, each of the drawer fronts, the dark color, so we have some accents. So we'll see how that turns out. So I'm going to put the first coat of the light stain on the whole countertop, and then I'll get going on the dark on there. And I don't know how many coats I'll put on, probably one coat of the dark, maybe two of the light, not sure yet. Okay, first coat on. I think it looks pretty good. So I'll have to put something along the edge here when I'm doing the dark so it doesn't get onto here. I'll figure that out and get a piece of wood or something, or a piece of I have some thin metal I can put along there. Okay, that's complete. I ended up doing this a little bit darker because I forgot to clean the brush. After I did the back, I was going to put a second coat on this, and I dipped the brush into the lighter color and just started going at it, and it was really dark. And then I realized, oh, I didn't clean the brush, so I wiped it off, and it did wipe off for the most part, but it did put a darker shade on here. So I ended up doing it a darker shade all the way across, and then put the oak over that after wiping it off, and then put the oak over it. So I'm not gonna, it's good enough for what we're doing with it.
It was getting rubbed, and one of the pieces broke off down there, so I gotta fiddle around with that.
That's all, folks.